share what we're doing. So excited to be here. So excited for another chance to get together. We have some awesome stuff we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to ask you some questions too. So I hope we'll get a lot of interaction today and kind of some thought-provoking stuff about just really about getting clarity on where, like, exactly where we're at in our lives right now and how to, like, move the needle in our favor. So anything fun, exciting going on? Any cool plans? You guys got summer plans laid out? Anything happening at all besides breakfast? Breakfast is good, right? Nothing? Yeah, that's it. Emily's pregnant. That's huge news. Yeah. So wait, when's like December, baby?
December 17th.
Oh, so awesome. Oh man, that's fantastic. So Baleen is digging into learning funnels. Isn't that so fun, Baleen? We're all over that too. I love it. Oh, so you're so into funnels that everything else is kind of getting the neglect. Yeah, that happens. It happens.
It's like a teeter-totter, right? You gotta go to the one side and then kind of
bring it back.
You go back and forth.
And then Heidi is preparing to ride the
Hiawatha Trail.
What's that, Heidi?
Is that the
As a family, that is awesome.
It's like on the tip of my tongue.
It's a trail up in like northern Idaho, like 15 miles it's all downhill though, 1% downhill, but it's through like a mile-long tunnel and over a bunch of bridges.
Cool.
It's supposed to be beautiful.
That sounds amazing. Oh,
and where does
cool.
Hiawatha come from? Isn't that do you know the origin of that?
It's got to be.
Hiawatha was the Indian guide to Lewis and Clark, wasn't she?
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Or Native American.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
cool.
So cool. That's awesome. I want to do something like that.
You're hiking Mount Shasta?
That's cool.
That's uphill though, not down.
It's uphill. That one's uphill the whole way, Heidi. Not 1% either. It's like up. It's going to hurt. That is suffering inducing. Okay, sweet. All right, guys.
Do you want to share our news or we're going to wait?
Oh, yeah. What's our news?
What is our news?
I don't know. We've been talking about adopting another baby.
That's our
exciting.
news.
Oh, not that one. It's out now. Oh, yeah. I love babies, you guys. Yeah, if I start talking about babies, we're gonna get another one.
You seriously can't think of any news we might have.
We're going to Mongolia. We're hiking Mount Shasta. This is the best.
I don't know if you're doing this on purpose because you don't want to talk about it, or if I should just say it.
A little painful right here.
Is that really what you're doing? You
don't
want to talk about it? You're changing the subject. Okay, we won't talk about it.
Is that one up in Alaska, Baleen? The Chilkoot. Cool. Okay. All right, let's get started, you guys.
You totally is.
It's the gold. It's from the gold when the gold rush happened. So it starts down in Alaska, goes up into Canada.
Very cool.
I want to do that one.
Oh, I've heard of that one. That would be great.
Chilkoot.
Okay, and sorry. And then Heidi's also saying, yeah, okay, it was Sacagawea and Hiawatha. For some reason, Hiawatha, though, was like coming up in my mind, too. But yeah.
The Iroquois.
I wonder
is the
if,
leader.
Yeah.
Maybe it had something to do with it.
We went to New Mexico in, when was it? October or November. And we got all those postcards of all the leaders and chiefs of all the Indian tribes. That must have been why it was like in my mind, because I was like, oh, Hiawatha, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, all right, let's get started, you guys. So here we go. I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory. So there I was reading from the great thinker. Now I can't think of his name. Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau. And I came across the line. He said, "We do not have possessions. Our possessions have us." And I was like, what? Huh? And he expounded on this idea that our things have us sometimes, that our possessions possess us. And and I got into it and I was studying it more and more. And I was at this point where we were moving towards like a minimalism and essentialism and just having things that were necessary for our life. Yeah, I mean, his thinking. If you guys haven't read Thoreau's thinking, like I love the way that man thinks and about just getting down to the bare bones of life. But the big thing was the idea is that every single thing we have in our lives, you guys, and I want let this sink in here. Every single thing that we have in our lives requires thought or space or time or energy or money or movement or responsibility. Like everything we have in our life takes up some of our energy and resources. Okay, we got to let that sink in.
Pencil.
The pencil here.
The children's Tylenol.
I mean, everything in our lives, and I'm being serious about this. I mean, it can get a little bit extreme to where some minimalists will like count. They'll allow themselves like 100 things, period, in their life. That's it. Like that just blows my mind. It's awesome. But like everything we have in our life takes up some kind of energy, space, time, money, resources. And so that birthed an idea that Rachel and I have been living and teaching for years now. It's what we call the exchange rate. That everything in our lives, every physical thing and everything we do has an exchange rate. And when I finally wrap my mind around that idea that everything has a cost, everything you choose to do or not to do has a cost. And when we start to measure that by what it costs us, I think it was also Thoreau that ended up saying that, like, I'm going to butcher it now. I'm going to butcher the idea, but it's the idea that the real value of something is not what you like pay for it with money, but what it costs you in time and life. So let's say I want to buy a new computer and I'm going to pay $3,000 for it. The real exchange is not $3,000, but it's what it costs me, what I have to give of my life to get the $3,000 to get the computer, right? Or I want to go hike a mountain, or I want to go on this trail. Like, what is it going to cost me, and what's the exchange rate? And very often, you guys, there's an exchange rate. It doesn't make sense at all. Like doing something with your family, like takes unbelievable amounts of work and effort and strain. I mean, traveling around the world with our family, holy guacamole. Sometimes we
like a full-time job.
Like it was so much effort to have one experience with our kids, and sometimes they didn't even like the experience. but like for us, like so worth it. That exchange rate was amazing. And then there's been other times we've exchanged for something we thought we wanted in our lives, and only to realize that wasn't worth it, right? And so everything has an exchange rate. So today we want to introduce this idea, and I want you to like go through your life and kind of think through it. This is going to be a little bit interactive here, and I want you to respond back in the chat, or you can get on mic. I want you to look through some of the things in your life right now that are costing you a lot and not bringing much value. And so we start looking at the exchange rate. What are the things that are costing a ton and delivering little? And what are the things that are delivering a ton and maybe they cost little or they cost a lot? You guys have heard of the 80-20 rule, where 20% of what you do brings 80% of the rewards, but sometimes it's flipped, that 80% of what you're doing is only bringing 20% of the results you want. And that's where I really want to dig in today and focus, because as we're seeking awesome sauce in every area of our life, right? As we're trying to grow and level up and pursue awesomeness and trying to get our life, like every important area of our life, leveled up. Again, physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, financial. As we're trying to get all those things lined up, some of us are literally giving 80% effort and getting 20% results. And we want to flip that. So 20% of things we're giving effort to are giving us 80% of what we really want in life. So everyone right now, let's take a minute here and just kind of go through your life quickly. You can even do the Fantastic Five if you want: physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, financial. And just look at that and say, what is the exchange rate of the things in your life right now? And I want you to share if you're willing. You don't have to, but I would love for you to share, because I think we're going to all be able to relate to that. And we're all going to get some insight. Some of you are going to be like, you know what I just realized? Like, this thing is costing us a lot and not bringing back the value we want. And it may be a physical object, you guys, in your house. It may be a hobby. It may be an errand. It may be your kid's soccer practice. I don't know what it is. Just think right now, everyone think, and we're going to share, because we're going to be able to get this big picture now of like, what's the actual exchange rate in our lives right now?
Well, and I think that is the kind of the goal of life, and the value of living with intention, being intentional about living, is because you kind of go through this process of what Greg's introducing right now over your lifetime in every area of your life. And, you know, right now it might seem crazy to be like, oh, you could put in 20% of the effort and get 80% of the results or whatever. But I think that's the beauty of living intentionally. And when we start to be intentional about every area of our life, then it starts to be that way. We start to see those flips where suddenly now we're intentional about these things, and they produce more value and joy in our life. While on the other side, we start to eliminate things from our life that take a lot of effort and energy and aren't just worth it in the end. They just are not providing that exchange rate value. And I know in our life, we still do this, but there was a specific time in our life when I think we were super intentional about literally going through everything in our life and analyzing why we do it and why we do it the way we do it, and if there's a better way to do it. And we've done that, and we keep doing it, you know, and we'll just, like, the way you eat, the way you breathe, the way you get up in the morning, the way you sleep, like the books you read, like we've literally gone through everything in our life and analyzed it with intention to see if there's a better way to do it or if it needs to be eliminated from our life. And as you do that, you literally start to craft and create and build this life where you're pretty much all that. Not that there's never going to be things in your life you don't want to do. Like, I don't necessarily want to wake up in the middle of the night with my 2-year-old who's sick, right? So that's something you necessarily want to do. There's still going to be things you have to do, but your life begins to be this life that's very intentional, and everything you do, you're doing because you want to do it, right? I mean, I want to get up with my 2-year-old, even though I don't want to do it, because I love her, because I want to nurture her and care for her and help her be healthy. But I think sometimes we forget this, of where we used to be. Our life is very intentional, and everything in it is there because
we wanted it.
We've chosen it to be there.
Where before, if you want to contrast that, we were operating on default, and so much of our life and the things we were doing in our life had just been given to us or handed to us along the way.
Someone else, so someone else's expectation.
I was 23 when we got married. Rachel was like 21 or 22, and all this stuff that had just been given us along the way, other expectations, and we didn't even know to ask or question that. We just did those things, and so we're operating on default, and the bulk of our life was just default. We were just going along. And when we finally had this realization of like, whoa, there's an exchange rate on everything, we're like, well, let's test the exchange rate on everything. Let's check it. And we look at something and go, well, that's costing us way too much and bringing us not enough reward. In fact, early on, because I'd grown up in poverty, like I didn't ever want to get rid of anything, you guys. I held on to everything. I was the beginnings of a hoarder. It was going to be bad because like, you never know if you'd need it, right? That's what I always told myself. You never know, you could use this someday. And it started to create all this problem. And I'm like, I keep having to deal with this stuff.
move it,
take care of it, find a place to put it. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And so we shifted from being a lot on default to very deliberate.
Well, and we went through a period of time for ourselves where we literally did go very extreme minimalist. Like we lived in our truck for a while, and traveled around Mexico and Central America. And that was a great experience for us. Like we really thoroughly enjoyed that and loved living without stuff. Like we had so little stuff. It was great. We literally could number, I think we owned like 314 things or something, and that was great. But I think then it also helped us to appreciate the value of things, because there is value in owning things. We love our Vitamix. We didn't own a Vitamix back then.
That's hilarious. That was the exact thing I was thinking of. The blender. It's the blender. Because you go to other countries and they don't have blenders. You're like, come on, you're killing me.
So, there is value in owning things, and that we've been able to experience the pleasure of owning things as well. And we're still very super intentional. We obviously own tons more. There's more than 313 things in this room right now. But we've become very intentional about what we bring into our life, and then we have no problem letting it go. If we're like, this is not serving us anymore, it's gone.
Huge. Okay, so we have one comment come in. I want comments from everybody. Like, what's the exchange rate on your stuff? Either you like it or you don't like it. This can be positive or negative. So let's just all share here. So Baleen, this is interesting. Excellent comment here. Having a hard time with the kids right now. They fight on anything that is school related or chores or pretty much anything I ask of them, right? Ready to send them to school or boarding school. We have been there.
Boarding school.
Or to sell them off to some place where they have to go work in hard labor and realize, well, life is really hard. It's really not what I want, but it takes so much out of me to fight the three of them on everything, right? So right now the exchange rate looks like, oh, if I homeschool, it's an epic battle. Like it's a war zone, right? And at that exchange rate, hashtag not worth it, right? And so, this is so good. I'm glad you brought that up. Because some things like that, you're like, wait a minute, but I homeschool for a reason. But the reason isn't happening. Like, it's ruining my life. Right? And I get that. Whoa. And so we look at the exchange rate, like, okay, the fight versus homeschooling not working. That's one where it's not the fight in homeschool. It's the fight around the methodology of homeschool. And so the current approach to education is not worth the exchange rate. And so, like you say, you're like, so I probably allow myself to get lost in the computer. We all turn to buffers, every one of us. Man, we've done this so many times. And we'll be like, okay, you guys, fine, play your instruments. And so they play their instruments. We're like, that's education. And what it was the current methodology isn't working and isn't worth it. So the exchange, and I love this. I'm glad you brought this up, and thanks for so much for sharing this, because I think every one of us can relate to this and the pain point there.
Okay. Sorry, Greg. I've been having the same thing for about a year, saying it's just not worth the fight to teach my kids, and yet I want to homeschool. I want to instill them. But what I discovered was I was seeing all the kickback of the things that I was trying to teach them, where their brains were saying, no, I don't want to do this. And I'm starting to see this tiny little progress of, we are making progress. And in the long run, the exchange rate is, my kids are not getting the crap from school. Yes, it's a little harder, but at the same time, I feel like I'm learning to deal with my kids, and we're learning to work out our family culture, whereas families who only have their kids in the evening or in the summers, every one of those moms says, I can't stand my kids. I want to send them back to school. And I'm saying, no, you have to deal with that relationship at some point. And if you don't do it when they're young, it's going to come out when they're older. And so I have felt like, even though it is so hard sometimes, and I think this is not worth it, in the end, I feel like we're making progress towards the family culture and the relationships that we want. It's just doing that right now when it's really painful and it feels so heavy. But I'm seeing my kids are still, everywhere they go, their scout leaders, their church leaders say, your kids are so amazing. They're so respectful. They're so whatever. And at home, I'm seeing they don't listen to me. They don't do their jobs. They don't do these things. But yet I feel like they're still getting it. And we're still making progress, even though it is painful right now. But in the long run, we are going to have this awesome relationship and a culture in our family of love and respect and hard work and learning to love learning. Whereas those other kids who are in school all day, those moms haven't figured out how to deal with their kids on an ongoing basis. And I feel like so their exchange rate is going to be down the road, and I'm just paying the price right now for it.
Oh, great insights. Thanks, Miriam. And I think that's true with parenting across the board. However we choose to do home education or public education, private education, whatever, whether we travel with our family, whether we stay home, like across the board, you're going to have these parenting exchange rates like that they're just tough. And sometimes it's time periods where it's ages. And Miriam, I like how you're saying in the long run, if I hold the long view to this game, it's worth it. The exchange rate's worth it. At the immediate, oh man. Oh.
Yeah. And what I was going to say is that, you know, sometimes we'll look at this exchange rate and maybe we decide at the moment, you know, one way or the other, like, okay, yeah, I'm going to stick with the homeschooling, or I'm going to put the kids in school because of whatever, you know, is going on that you need to do that. And the thing to remember is that I just lost my train of thought. Like, what was the point of why I was saying this? Dang it.
Exchange rate of having kids keep you up all night long.
I know.
Your brain doesn't work.
It'll come to me in a
It'll come back.
second.
It'll come back.
It'll come back. I know it will.
So, and I love that. So yeah, man, again, you guys with the big exchange rate here on everything, as you're evaluating all your stuff, I love that, Miriam. Thank you for bringing back the long game perspective. Like, is this worth this struggle right now? And again, we're always asking, can I?
What I was going to say, sorry, I don't want to lose it again, is that once we decide a path that we want to take, it's not going to be easy, okay? Whether it is public school or it's homeschool or it's private school or it's charter or it's a combination of all of the above, you know, it's never going to be easy. Like, there's always going to be the battles, and there's always going to be the kickback, and there's always, because that's our kids' job, basically, right? That's their job. They're supposed to do those things because they're growing up, and that's how you grow up, and that's how you learn, pushing the boundaries. But what it comes down to is then, Greg kind of touched on it, looking at the methodologies. Like, okay, I've decided to homeschool. It doesn't seem to be working. How can I change the method I'm using? How can I switch it up? How can I do it differently? What can I change? Because like he's saying, it's not necessarily the homeschooling that's the problem. It's the approach we're taking. Maybe it's the way we're interacting. Maybe it's the tone of our voice. Maybe it's like, there's so many different things. And that's what being intentional is about, is you could take, like, if you're talking about, like, here's a topic, whatever it is, homeschooling, you could narrow it down and be intentional about all these different areas. Is that even making sense? My little diagram here. Tone of voice, time of day, like structure, eliminating certain things. Like, you can be so intentional about every little aspect of it. And that's where you start to see the improvements. That's where now this, something that's taking up 80% of your time and energy now becomes less energy intensive because you've tweaked the little tiny parts of it. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
It does to you. Good. That's all that matters.
You guys, I hope you're finding this valuable right now. Maybe some ahas are clicking on, right? One time we wanted our kids to really focus on math and language. And so we got devices. We got iPads and devices out, and we're like, we're going to do Duolingo, and we're going to do these math games and get out. And so we pull it out, and the kids were doing their Spanish and they were doing their language stuff, but then they were easily getting distracted on other things on the devices. And then it was device time and device and screen time, boom, boom. And all of a sudden we realized, whoa, not worth the exchange rate. Like we brought it in for one reason, and it ended up being more of a battle, a struggle. Like, okay, those are gone.
And you find a different way.
And you find a different way. So sometimes it's the method.
Little example,
yeah, small example. Sometimes it's the method. Sometimes it's the switch. We have one child. We usually don't use like full curriculums, but we found a curriculum we really like, and we bought it for the family. And one kid absolutely refuses.
Does not like it.
He will not. And we're like, come on, we paid for this. It's so good. And he's like, like, no go. Just none. Won't have anything to do with it. And so okay, not worth the exchange rate there. And so we switched that out. So we'll keep going through more and more examples, you guys, so we get this. Aaron says, still figuring this out, but we certainly had people remind us of the opportunity cost of us coming to Guatemala. However, they were just focused on the money. There's a perfect example, Aaron. Perfect example. I really believe this time invested in our family and time to refocus our goals and intentions in our life in the long run, I feel the growth will far surpass the financial opportunity cost. Perfect example. Like, it may cost you, we've done that with our family so many times, where we've literally spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for one experience.
Well, and I know this was definitely a issue in our life, because we postponed business and career advancement and all of that for a long time, like 10 years, because we were focusing on that family growth time together. And, we traveled around the world. We went to 35 countries, and not that we're done traveling or anything, but we definitely, I feel that we kind of made a switch now where we're like, okay, now it's time to focus on, and that's, I guess, kind of the point. Like, I think you can make up that time if you decide to do that. I don't think it's gone and lost. There's just a different season. Like, our season was focusing on our family and developing our family and developing ourselves. And now we've got that more, that's more natural to us now. And now it's like, okay, let's focus on business. And I don't feel like it's necessarily time lost.
It's just the exchange rate. We literally were measuring the exchange rate and chose what would be most valuable each time. And it'll switch, it'll change, it'll grow. Oh, I love this. So Allison said, banned her husband from buying stuff for the kitchen. Let him get a blender. Yay. Okay. So here's a perfect example. And you guys, I want, let me read this from Annette. Annette said, I homeschooled for 26 years. Kids are grown now. Please know that fruit is well worth the growing years. Oh, yes. And with parenting the right way, putting in the effort. Okay. Here's something I'd like all of you to do. And you don't have to share, but I would like you to. I want everyone to put in, and Emily started out here. Is there something in your life that's taking up too much and that maybe need to go? So Emily said, TV is the big problem. Netflix, Amazon Prime eat up a lot of time. It doesn't provide much value. Emily, thank you. Fist bump here. Thanks for being the first one to throw that out. Man, of all the good that can come from TV and movies and technology, at the end of the day, we all have to ask, like, is this really adding value to my life? Occasionally you'll be like, yeah, that was awesome.
We just watched the second episode of Les Mis last night.
There's a brand new Les Miserables series. Like,
they created it. It's on PBS now.
Wow. Huge for our whole family. That's worth it. But
we love Les Mis. We're big Les Mis fans.
My all-time favorite book and the stories. As I read the book, the whole book, I would just tell them stories and they fell in love with it. Yeah, Miriam, I think so. Like, they've done the musical was awesome.
Yeah, we loved the last one, the musical one. But what we love about this is because it's a series. They're really dragging it out, so they're telling more of the real story from the book. Like, in the book is so long that most of the movies leave out a ton, like a lot, and they're adding all of these details in, and and yeah, it's pretty.
Love it. Okay, so you guys, we're gonna get yeah, some of the scenes are too graphic. Miriam, you're right. That's what I love about Les Mis, though. And if you've read the book, he describes life as it really is, and that's what hurt. Like, I felt like crying last night, you guys. I was just, Rachel's like, "What's up with you?" And I'm like, "It's the movie." Like, when I read this, and it's one of my all-time favorite books because I've lived in those hard places, my friends. I've lived out on the streets and I've seen the darkness.
Well, and that's
and
what
it gets me. Holy
it
cow.
Les Mis can be very graphic, but that's also why it's touching, because it is the pain of people. Even still today, people are living that pain. And I think, like, this is why we love it as part of our family culture, because a lot of times our kids are like, well, it's so sad though. And we're like, yeah, it is sad. But especially because our life is so good, like, we need reminders that life
can be crazy
sad.
hard.
And especially if we think our life is hard, you know,
and it's really not.
that we need reminders that it's not as bad as we think, or it could be worse, right? You could be a prostitute and lose your hair and teeth. And
oh, okay. Important side note there. That was awesome.
Yeah, ST says, where can you watch it? We watched it on pbs.org. We watched the first 2 episodes. I think now we have to pay to watch the third, which we'll do.
Worth it. Exchange rate on that one. Worth it. Oh man. Okay, so let's see. Okay, Allison says, I would say my phone is problematic. From one side, it provides a lot. Yep. Love it. I think the phone for all of us is this one. You got to measure it. Google, GPS, other useful stuff. But is it worth the time I end up spending on it, or the damage I think it does to relationships in the house? Thank you, Allison, for bringing that up. How many of us can relate to that? Whoa. Oh, just me? I'm the only one? Jeez. You guys are killing. Oh, thanks, Mary. Thanks, Mary's in. No, you guys, the phone, like, and I feel that's the way with technology. It can bring so much good, but we have to be so intense about it. Like, so strategic and intense, like it cannot own us. And I think, man, Thoreau, you guys, what would Thoreau say about our cell phones? About possessing us, right? Man, he was calling that out before we had phones and screens. I think he nails it. So again, okay, so we got Netflix, Amazon Prime, we got phones, and that's just stuff. Retiring in March, woohoo! Having a hard time letting go of the kids' childhood things, homeschool years, and moving on to the next phase of life, okay? So we get attachment to things, and understandably, right? And so this is where the exchange rate is going to be so important, of things you will hold on to because they'll have so much value to you and so much meaning. And then other things you're like, yeah, I just need to let go. And each of you will have to measure that.
And I think this is just a random thought I had, but I think, especially watching, like, I also watch, what's her name? Marie Kondo, the tidying up. I like to show that to my kids, you know. I'm like, come on, guys, we're all going to watch this together, because it's a good way of indoctrinating them with being tidy, right?
And this is the lady from
Japanese
Japan?
lady.
Yeah, she's intense. That lady's awesome.
But I like even with the memorabilia and stuff like that, she's like, if you're going to keep it, great, but like display it or you know, scrapbook it, or like do something so that it becomes usable and for the purpose that you're connected to it. Like, you're connected to it for an emotional purpose. Make that a more useful emotional purpose. So that then it's actually bringing that joy. You know, she's always talking about sparking joy. Then it's actually sparking that joy in your life, instead of just, you know, being in some box in the garage or something. Like, and then if you're like, well, I'm not willing to do that, then maybe that's a clue. Well, I guess it's not that valuable to me.
Right.
If I'm not willing to somehow make it more displayable and usable, then
And so, and Heidi says here, I feel like I'm always working between my desire to get rid of stuff and my family's desire to have things. Yes, I think we can all relate to that. What we do with our children, it seems to be working, is we'll have them take something, each item, and say, does this really bring you joy? Do you just love it? Does this want to be a part of your life? And often they're just like, well, no, it's just a thing, and just have it. Like, okay, You'd be willing to free up space.
And sometimes with the younger ones, especially, like if I feel like it's something that I'm not sure, like if I know they wouldn't really care, I just get rid of it. But if I feel like they're not sure, I'll hide it for a while. Like I'll get rid of it temporarily and put it away. And if they never notice it or miss it or ask about it or anything after a while, then I'm like, okay, it's gone. Right?
Sweet.
Because I mean, kids are their own person too, and you don't want to be the decider of what they get to have and what they get to keep. You want them to make their own decisions about those things, because that's something they're going to have to deal with at some point anyways to become adults. So I like to let them decide, but they need to decide. Like they need to really analyze, is this something that's really bringing me joy and worth having in my life, or can I let it go?
Love it. Okay.
What was the funny thing I missed?
No, SD said, watch an episode of Hoarders before you watch the Marie Kondo show. Yes, I love the contrast is beautiful.
And things like this, like I said, I intentionally watch this with my kids and stuff, and maybe Hoarders. If your kids have a problem with hoarding, maybe you should watch that show.
Make them watch it.
It's okay to be intentional about using TV and media and all these things to teach these principles. There's nothing wrong with that, for sure. Like, be intentional and be like, hey, we're going to watch the show and then we're going to talk about it. And, after we watched Marie Kondo, my 16-year-old was like in her room cleaning up and being like, I'm going to be neater, Mom,
That's awesome. Heidi said, I've hid it 6 months in the garage, and when I get rid of it, they ask where it is.
Of course.
Exactly. They've got some guy beacon like, wait a minute, something's just gone out of my life. What was it? Love it. Olivia says,
you just say, oh well.
Yeah, it's gone. Olivia says, I spend far too much time consuming or gathering information, book, curriculum, health research, inspirational media, relative to the amount of time I spend actually using and applying it. Ooh, good. I've been guilty of that. Learning, and rarely applying it. I've gathered so many tools that have potential to improve my life, but instead of actually using what I've invested in, I spend more time looking up even more. Oh, I can relate to that. Those of us who are learners, we've got books and books and books and books. And man, if we could apply or remember half of what we've learned, we would be amazing. And by we, I mean me. Excellent point, Olivia. Okay, you guys, so if I might, you guys know this is coming, right? Because I love you and I want the best for you, I'm going to issue some challenges here. And here's why. If you have ever seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it is a pyramid. And I've taught like full-on classes on this thing. If you've seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a triangle with, I think, 6 levels. Okay, are you going to find it and show it?
Hierarchy of needs? Sure.
Okay. Well, so in the hierarchy of needs, he goes through and he says, look, these are the basic things people need. They need food and clothing and shelter. They need safety. They need emotional connection. They need fulfillment of property, right? They need these things to progress. So most of us, unfortunately, what we do, that one there. And we're gonna screen share here. So go back to Zoom. My assistant is pulling up the screen here. Just kidding. I'm her assistant. Hit double click. Boom. Can you guys see that? Yeah, got it. Okay. So at the bottom you see physiological needs. What are you doing?
I'm trying to open just the image.
That's okay. So, okay, there you go. Got it. Sweet. So you have physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, self-actualization. So self-actualization is at the very top, finally, where you're doing the thing you're born to do, right? You're making the most of self. You're reaching your potential. You're doing awesome things. Now, most people, and here's where they get this totally wrong. They look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and they go, let's see, physiological needs, air, water, food, shelter, clothing, reproduction, done. I'm good. Right? And they move on to the next level. But guess what? That's not true. It's not true. Because what if our food quality isn't very good? We're stuck. What if our shelter is all cluttery and packed? Okay? You might have shelter But if your shelter looks like a hoarder, like the
Hoarder's
a
episode.
hoarder episode, like you're not progressing to the next level. If you don't get good sleep, if you don't like your clothing and it's just become a hassle and a burden to you, remember this is the exchange rate. Everything's costing you. And so literally many of us are stuck at level 1. We're totally stuck. And then safety needs, it might be personal security but you feel emotionally safe. You may hate your employment. You might have employment, but you might hate it and feel like it's not part of your path in life and you're afraid to leave it. Your resources might be limited, or you might have resources that are causing you problems, your property, and on and on and on. So basically I wanted to show you this because at each level, you see the white line in between each color. That for a lot of people literally becomes a barrier to progress. And you hit it and you can't go up. And you literally cannot progress in life. You can't get to the next level of awesome sauce until you resolve the issue at that level.
Kind of like the little stair diagram, we always do about going to the next levels and everything, and you're hitting those ceilings. In some ways, these are these ceilings. And we might feel like, oh, well, we're stuck. I just feel like I'm stuck. I just feel like I can't make progress. I can't move ahead. I can't take action. And it might be there's something in your life that you might think is totally unrelated that's creating this ceiling, that's preventing you from progressing. It might be the quality of your air, or the way you're breathing, or the quality of your water, or your, like, for in our own personal life, I'm going to be personal right here. We've been feeling this.
They don't even react when we like yell and are personal. Like, here we go again.
We've been feeling, I think, a little stuck because of our shelter. We rented this. I don't know if you guys know all of our story or can even keep up with what we're doing or why, but we rented an apartment here in Salt Lake for kind of the holidays. We were going to spend time with family, and it was easier to work on business and have internet and all that stuff. But our kids don't have anywhere to go play. We're in an apartment. There is like a pond and this big open area across there, but they seem to get in trouble when they go out, and they've been yelled at a few times. And so they just are now staying in the apartment, and they don't there's nowhere for them to go run and play and be themselves. And so that is contributing to kind of the family's overall level of happiness. And so in that way, we felt the shelter aspect, this physiological need, is kind of restricting and inhibiting some of our growth. So we've been searching for solutions for that. That was the news I was going to share, but you don't even want to
share it.
I didn't know. So we actually, because we've been searching for a solution, we actually just went under contract to rent a home in Georgia. And so we are moving to Georgia. That's our news.
Georgia
has a big backyard. It's on a lake. And, because again, this was one of the things that we felt was inhibiting us. And you think, oh, how is that connected to your business? Or how is that connected to whatever, maybe your homeschooling or your self-esteem? Who knows, but these things that you might think aren't related can be totally connected and totally related. And we realize that getting into a better shelter condition is going to help the family feel better, the kids feel better, which then, helps the business progress, and it helps, it's all connected. It's all interconnected. And so I guess that's kind of what we're trying to point out here, is that when we're feeling these feelings of being stuck or not being able to progress, or we have to look at this chart. This chart is just so powerful. And see, okay, well, what is some area that maybe is not, I don't think is related, that can be stopping me from progressing?
Sweet. You guys, this is so profound here. I love it. Okay. Let me give you some concrete examples. There are things in your life that you may seem totally unrelated. I've worked with people. They may be struggling with depression. and it was literally connected to the kind of food they were eating. And they made adjustments in their diet, and all of a sudden they're feeling emotionally way better, right? And there was an exchange rate on the food. I've worked with youth that were struggling with severe anxiety, and as we combed through their life, it was their music. They were listening to music that was just causing all kinds of issues, right? And so there's all these ways to go through this. And so I want you to like go through your life. And I know this is I'm asking a huge thing here, but I want you to go through your life eventually with like a fine-tooth comb. And I want you to measure the exchange rate on everything. Now you might need to adjust the method, because it might be a good thing, but you're just doing it in a way that's not as effective. You might need to adjust the method, but for some of you, you're just going to need to get rid of it. Oh, we got a cute little one that's sick. So Rachel's going to step out here. Okay. So Mary says, I'm feeling stuck right now too, living in an RV to travel, but stuck in RV parks. Ooh, man, we can relate to that. Oh, I hate the RV parks, Mary. Actually, I found some amazing ones. And when you're in a good one, you love it. When you're not, oh man. It takes a lot of my time to get the kids out of there. Yep. And they're spending too much time on devices. Yep. Because there aren't other convenient options. So trying to figure out if it's worth the exchange rate. Yep. Or we need to tweak to make it work better. There you go. Those are two perfect questions, Mary. So like, can we do this differently so it's still worth it? Or is it the whole way of doing it? And you need to ask those questions. So can I ask that of you guys? I mean, I'm trying to be with all the love and kindness here, but also as a coach, I want you to be a little bit intense, and I want you to comb through your life and realize where you're causing problems. I was working with a couple one time, and the husband was just deathly afraid of everything, wouldn't do anything, wouldn't go anywhere, wouldn't try anything. And his wife was like, I want to do these different things. And she was sitting there telling me this. And before she even said it, I said, he watches the news too much, doesn't he? And she's like, how'd you know? Like, that's all he does is consume the news. I'm like, yep, gotta go. Gotta cut it out. Right. And when I've done it with coaching, transform. So if we were doing one-on-one coaching with I was sitting down with you, we were doing one-on-one coaching, I would literally comb through every single part of your life, get an accounting for exactly what you're eating, exactly what you're listening to, exactly what you're watching, exactly what you own. I would get a detailed on what's in your bedroom, what's in your kitchen, what's in your life, like where are you staying, where are you going, what are you doing, and like what are you taking the kids to, and all this stuff. And what happens, you guys, when you go through it all and you look at it, you get the exchange rate, you're gonna, like Maslow's hierarchy, you're gonna find these things like, holy guacamole, like this was sucking so much life out of me and so much energy and not giving me back very much value. It has to go. And when you free that up in your life, you go through his hierarchy and you work your way up, then that's the only time you can really start self-actualizing. Like you're really living at your best. When you've freed up the space, mental, emotional, and physical energy and resource and financial to make it happen, it's huge, 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 huge. Does that make sense, you guys? With me? Is this stuff awesome or what? Woo! Now, I'm wondering what's going on in your heads right now. I really am curious to know. Some of you are probably like, but I don't want to get rid of my thing.
Can I chime in?
Please.
So something that was really, really not working for us was I have an 8-year-old who's having some massive behavioral issues, and, like what do they call it? Oppositional defiance. You say, do this. He's like, no way. And just massive tantrums, massive breaking things. It was just, the whole family was revolving around him. And so I'm like, enough. So I started looking into how can we do this? Anyway, come to find out he's allergic to about all the foods we eat on a regular basis. Corn, oats, wheat, all these things. But he was also massively allergic to red food dye, which I was not giving him, but he would go to church and they would hand him a candy and he was like, oh, great. And I just was like, oh, well, I don't feed it to him, but he gets it at church. And so we've seen a huge shift with him eating appropriate foods. So that's been huge. And I am seeing a shift in my spouse, who is less excited about doing some of these things. But how do we get him not to watch the news? Because he's Mr. all day on his phone reading the news, and he's Mr. I'm scared, we can't, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And I'm seeing him make some major shifts because I feel like I'm bringing the tide, like you talked about, because of some of the things, because he's now starting to say, well, we should do this, or we can do this. And so I'm seeing some shifts, really. But how do you encourage them? Because I've said, oh, let's not read the news. And, without being the bossy wife, I would like some more encouragement for him to do that, rather than just tell him that's not good for you, because he doesn't believe me.
Yes. Oh, thanks so much for that. First, yeah, like huge excitement there for your kid. That literally, as soon as you started talking about your son, the first thing I thought of was food. Because that's often a huge issue. For some of us too, you're like, oh, I just feel like junk. It might be a food thing. So make that shift. That's awesome. And then the news thing. And way to bring the tide, Miriam. Way to bring the tide. It works, you guys, doesn't it? Right?
It works.
It works, man. Bring the tide. So yeah, here's where negotiation skills come in, and where diplomacy comes in. Rachel and I love to teach that, like, diplomacy is probably the most important parenting tool, and it's true for marriage too. Somehow finding a way to get spouses and children to buy in, to opt in, whether it's a media fast. We just say, hey, try going a week, no news. Maybe it's something like that.
And maybe everyone agrees to do it or something.
Yeah, the whole
Just
family.
no devices.
Okay, we're going on media fast. The whole family, we're going to boom. And husband included, you too, buddy. And wife included. I mean, everybody's included. Like, and we do it, and we're all just going to pay attention to our feelings and our thoughts. It's amazing. It's incredible. One of my coaching clients, he had the news on every single day. Okay. And he's like, I have to be on it. And I said, it's tanking your life. Oh, I don't know. I said, do it. Give me 30 days, buddy. And he cut out everything. He came back to me just within a week, just bouncing off the walls. I'm so focused. I'm so driven. I'm so motivated. I've never felt this happy in my life. It's carrying over my whole family. Like, this is done. It's not coming anymore. Like, his optimism was off the charts. He actually started hitting his weight loss goals and his fitness goals and his financial goals, because all that was just draining him. The hierarchy was hitting it hard on level 2. Like, it was psychology, right? It was incredible.
I was going to say sometimes, which again requires a lot of diplomacy with a spouse. You can, I think, do it easier with kids. I will literally look up stories, research, any information I can use to back this change or this change or shift that you want to make. I will get all the research I can to back that up. So then it's like, they know it's not just coming from you. It's not like, this is what I think. It's like, oh gosh, I read this story, or wow, I just found this article. I just found this on the news saying how news is not good for life. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just get something that's going to help them make that mental shift in their mind themselves. So then, I mean, that's the best way, when they feel like it's their idea and their choice and their decision.
It has to be that way.
Then they're all in and they're committed. But you can help that process. In fact, there's, this technique. I think unschoolers will use this technique sometimes, and it's called like scattering. Maybe you print out an article and you just happen to leave it lying around or something, like scatter the information that you want them to be introduced to.
But please be tactful. The worst thing you do is walk in and be like,
you need to read this.
Hey, kid, you're rotting your brain. Get off of that.
Yeah, you
like,
have to.
This doesn't work.
And that's why I love the word diplomacy. You have to learn how to be a diplomat, just as if you were negotiating with some foreign leader. You don't want to start a war, right? So you have to use lots of tact, and you have to be a little bit maybe sly and go about it in a way that they don't feel like you're trying to manipulate them. That you're just saying, yeah, well, you could be right, but have you considered this? Or what about this point of view? Or, and then sharing the information that's going to help convince.
And here's the most effective way that I found to do this is I pick something that I want to get rid of or change in my life, and I tell my whole family. I say, hey, there's this thing. I realize it's been consuming too much of my time, or it's been having a negative effect on me. But I like it and I've had it and I'm used to it. I'm going to cut it out. Will you guys join me? And let's all pick something and let's do a challenge together. Let's do a family challenge and let's cut this off.
Or they see you doing it and then they're inspired by that.
And you bring the tide.
And again, I think it always has more power if you have some sort of story or something to go along with it. Like if you can be like, wow, I read this story about this family that did this media fast and this was the result. That's so inspirational. Let's try it, guys. What do you think? Things like that. People get inspired by other people's stories. Yep. And then it inspires them to want to do similar things. And so when we can use stories and others' examples in our lives, I think that there's a lot more power there.
Love it. Okay, I want to hit some of the things in the chat box here. Emily said, a little scary. She realized the biggest client is draining my energy and my husband's, and it doesn't pay enough. Whoa. Now I know I need to get other clients to replace this client, free up my energy. Perfect. There you go. I think that's your answer, Emily. You realize I've got a client, doesn't pay enough, consuming tons of resources. My whole focus right now is getting a new client to replace that one. Boom. That's it. That's my focus. Just go, go, go. That's my focus, to replace that client. I love that. SD saying, man, I just can't fathom how to improve some of the things in my life that are major parts of the hierarchy, but I don't have control over. I can't make someone do something. You're absolutely right. But, you guys, maybe we should how many of you would be interested in me slowly going through hierarchy here as we meet, going through? Because if I can walk through each part of our life here, and if you guys see this and see how this works in each step and free it up, like it's so transformational. It finally just frees up the space for you to move to the next level. But you literally, none of us can move to the next level until we resolve the issues at the present level. And this is true for all of us across all humanity. So maybe we're going to just slowly dig through. Mm-hmm. Maybe each time we'll meet, we'll do one level and something else. Mm-hmm. Okay. Maslow. We're going to hit this hard. I've spent a lot of time researching this and studying this. It's so good.
Because I think what we begin to realize and learn is that there are some things we don't have control over, but we start to realize that we have a lot more control or influence. Maybe control is not necessarily the right word. We have a lot more influence than we realize. Yep. Especially if we develop the ability and skill of influencing. Yep. Sometimes we just don't have, maybe we may not have the current skills or abilities to do it, but we can develop it.
Yes, so true. Sometimes we don't have the influence with our spouse or our children yet because we're at the end of our skill set when it comes to influence. Influence is not automatic. And nor is it episodic. Episodic means it just happens in one episode or one moment. Like I'm gonna walk in and I'm gonna tell my kids the way things are, and it's done from here on out. That's crazy. Like that won't work. I'll go over like a lead balloon, right? It's just not gonna happen. But I'm like, okay, I got to get my skill set up. Then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna create change, and we can do that.
And we've talked about this before, where a lot of times we think whatever situation in our life, whether it's shelter or parenting or relationship, marriage or anything, finances, like we tend to think we hit the ceiling. We don't know it's a ceiling, and we just think this is just the way things are and I can't control it. When the reality is we've hit the limit of our skill set. So with your current skill set, yes, that's how things are. But if you improve your skill set, if you change your skill set, if you increase it, then you actually can break past that ceiling and reach a new level.
Whoa, which is so good. Allison brings up a good point here that I failed to mention earlier. Sometimes I've reached a point in friendships where I feel the exchange rate has gone wrong. It is always a hard call to decide when to end a friendship, when to give value to past behavior and hope it's only a small age related to personal issues they're currently having, right? So like so true, my friends. In all of your relationships, there's going to be an exchange rate too. Yep. And so you're going to have to measure relationships. And can I Can I just be totally upfront with you? Sometimes you have relationship with extended family members, and I know you're related to them, and I know you love them, or at least you're supposed to love them, right? Because sometimes you have a hard time loving them. But even sometimes of those, if they're toxic, they need to be reduced to a healthy level. And watch how that just drastically influences your emotional and energy state. Baleen says, I feel there might be a lot of this in why I haven't really started my business. Oh, I guarantee it. Every one of us, whenever we're hitting a ceiling or a stop or something's preventing us, we can always go back to this hierarchy and say, what level below here am I missing that's preventing me from moving forward?
What skill sets am I missing?
The skill sets, yeah. Yeah, Fiona, the energy vampires, right? Exactly. Yeah. We got a lot of vampires in our lives. And it's like, we love people, we can still love them, and we can still be kind and respectful and influential. But yeah, you've got to get some distance without feeling guilty. You got to be able to create some distance and some space, or at least lay down some lines. I've had to say, hey, you know what, love you, want to have a relationship with you, but we can't do this anymore. It's just not working. So we got to both agree to this. And if we can agree that, great, we can keep going. But if like every time I see you, you're going to keep complaining and tearing down people and gossiping or whatever, like we can't do that anymore. Let's just set that up. All right. Whoa, man, is this stuff great or what? Whoa. Okay, exchange rate. So does everyone have at least one thing? I don't want it to feel too overwhelming. Some of you are ready and you're going to go gangbusters. And you're going to be taking massive loads of stuff to the thrift stores this week, the donation centers. But I want you to pick at least one thing that you know will make a significant positive impact in your life that's has a nasty exchange rate. Okay, just pick one thing. For some of you, it may be like setting really strict hours on your phone. For some of you, it may be a friendship. You're like, okay, done.
They do have those time limit things, at least on the iPhones.
You set a time limit.
For my kids, you go in there and you set the time limit, and when the time's up, then
that's that.
Or at least the specific apps just shut down.
Some of you, it might be you love chocolate chip cookies. You just love them, but the exchange rate is just getting you, so the cookies are gone. For some of you, you might just need to pull the trigger and it's going to hurt. You need to cancel your Netflix subscription. For some of you, you might just have to scrap the whole plan for the method of parenting or homeschooling or whatever you're doing right now, and like we're switching that whole thing up.
Well, and that might even look like just taking a break. Sometimes we literally just need a break. Everybody just takes a little breather.
And you set up parameters and say, hey, we're not going to do anything structured, but you may read, you may color, you may draw, you may practice your musical instruments, but these are the 5 things you can do. Go to it. That's what we're going to do. That's it. We're going to take a break. And that's just this reset. Really good.
Or you allow them, like I'll do this maybe at least once a year where I allow them, maybe we'll have a week where they just do whatever, like literally practically whatever, while I strategize and get a vision of what I want and what I want it to look like and what I'm going to try and implement. And, I'll make charts or whatever it is I need to do and it's just okay. Like during that time, it's okay. They can do their thing.
Play.
They can play. Maybe they're watching movies, but I'm focusing on getting this vision and strategy for what I want or need to do. If that makes sense.
Love it. Fiona says getting strict about bedtime will help. And I think that's true for adults, my friends. I know a lot of you have a hard time getting to bed. So you need to discipline yourself like you were your own parent. Like put yourself back on restrictions. Okay, everyone have something? Should we help hold each other accountable here and throw it in the chat or on mic? Or is that too intimidating? Is that just too much? You guys can always tell me if I ask too much, and I'll just be like, deal with it. No, I'm just kidding. I won't.
We have to get uncomfortable to change, right?
That's right. Oh, Miriam, that's right. Yes. Oh, see, I love when I get support like this, people. Hey, share it. What are you going to do? What are you going to change? What's your exchange rate?
Okay, I'm taking a break with jobs and school because right now we're having a little bit of the fight. So I think we need to reevaluate and figure out a way to have them buy in to a plan, not necessarily my plan.
Oh, perfect. And go right in and say, hey guys, I'm dropping my plan. We're going to create one together that's all yours. And they'll take ownership of it. I love that.
And honestly, I believe that kind of is an ongoing thing. And like, I don't think you would ever just come up with a plan for the family or homeschool or whatever, and then like that plan is going to work for the rest of eternity. Like, it's just not how it happens. Like, I feel at least every 6 to 12 months, I've got to come up with a new plan. And we always go off this idea of tacking. Like, if you're flying an airplane or your guide, a ship is sailing across the sea, like they never just go from point A to point B in a straight line. It never works that way. They're constantly off course, and tacking is when you're making those corrections to get where you want to go eventually, but you have to make those corrections. And so I think it's just an ongoing process. That's going to be true with your business. It's going to be true with your marriage. It's going to be true with your parenting, your homeschool, like everything you do, you're essentially course correcting often.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, you guys, these good ones coming in. Okay, daily time limit on Facebook. Bam, love that. Okay, and I would invite you to choose a specific time limit right now. No more beers on the sofa after I finally got everyone to bed. That's like the perfect time to like recover, reset, or like work on something. I love that. I love that one. Okay, when you get into bed, like celebrate and then get on what you want to work on.
Or go to bed yourself.
Or go to bed. Yeah, exactly. When they're to bed, like go to sleep. I love that. Okay, Emily says, get rid of Netflix. How long should I give myself to replace my biggest client? Ooh. That depends on
whether you're pregnant.
How much you want to lean into the law of manifestation and attraction, and like if you really believe the universe is working in your favor and you have the bandwidth to turn on some serious hustle and attract a new client, who knows, this Friday that interview might be the new client. That's pretty cool. But if God knows and the universe knows and you know I'm looking for a replacement, opportunities are going to pop up right in front of you and you got to jump on them. So that's cool. That's exciting. Okay, resolve differences in income budget so we can reduce stress. Love that. Okay, so yeah, there you go. And man, even with that one, you guys, that's a huge one where you can say, what are our expenses and what are ways to increase income? Because there's two paths there. Is there something we can do to increase income? Is there something we can do to reduce expenses? Is there something we can do in both arenas? And we've done this ourselves many times, and we've helped other families do it, where you get down and you realize, man, what's the exchange rate on, we've been paying, $200 a month for this choir practice or storage unit. Like, we've $200 a month storage unit. Just burn the stuff, have a bonfire with your kids, and now there's $200 a month. It's free, yay! I mean, just whatever it is, or you the kids might be doing soccer practice and it's costing you $200 a month, and they're like, I don't even really love it. I've just kind of been doing it. Boom, there you go. Or $80 a month for cable. That's an easy one. Get rid of that thing, right? Things like that. So, all right, you guys, this is awesome. Love this stuff. So wherever you're at, I know some of you are just college students, single college students, and you just need to go on a really hot date this weekend. And then the rest of you married, you need to have a hot date with your spouse on a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night if you're that ambitious. I know it's Tuesday. I was going to give them a day. But cut something out. Get serious about it. Go through your whole life. You guys check the exchange rate on everything, okay? Do it and don't do it all once. Please don't do it all once. Like if it were me, I'd have it all done by Friday. Just kidding. But like all we're doing is introducing the idea. You're going to pick one thing. But now I've given you the idea. You're literally going to start going through your life over the next year and go, wait a minute. What in the world? We've been doing this for years and none of us even really loves it. Like, it's out. It's out. It's so cool. And when you become so intentional about it. Okay. Good. Yeah. Get the love notes to the spouse, people. Seen a huge shift in my marriage with texting. I love when this stuff works because I know it does. Oh, Miriam, that's awesome. Yes. Oh, you guys.
Yeah.
And those of you
I like
here
that.
who are single, just start sending out like love texts to, people. No, just it works,
a
man.
good idea.
Not a good idea. Don't do it on, whatever those apps are. Don't do that. That's crazy. But love notes, express your love, friends. Little things like that they make a huge difference, don't they? You guys, this stuff's awesome. Holy cow, this stuff's awesome. I love it. It's making shifts and changes. Okay. All right. If you have any other questions, please continue to put questions and successes and triumphs and challenges and failures and everything in the Facebook group. Let's keep supporting each other. This is an awesome community and tribe here of people who are living deliberately and intentionally and making changes in our world that will then get out into the world. I love this stuff. Love you guys. You're awesome. Remember, awesome is always an option. Reach upward. Keep going for it. Have a great week. And then share your triumphs. If you guys get rid of stuff, take some pictures of throwing away things or giving away things or changing things. Share it in the Facebook group. That'll be fun. Okay. Adios, amigos.